And we all got dreams, we all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything? But what you gonna
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Well, we're getting ready to launch here. It's still a little early, still a little bit of dusk. You know, it's going to be overcast day, so it's not going to be as bright as it normally would be at this time in the morning. But we're out here getting ready to do a water speed test with the Nucanoe Unlimited MAX. We have everything on here we would when we go fishing, minus the fishing poles or a little bit of tackle. So you're talking about 5 to 10 pounds. But we have our Torqeedo 1103. We got our Yak Attack Visipole with the American flag. We got the Yak Attack boomstick with our camera. We got our black pack. We got the battery for Torqeedo. We have our graph. We have our transducer mount. We got our gear pod with lighting and battery and all our supplies. We have our paddle. We have some other little accessories on here, but we have everything on here, like I said, minus the fishing poles and some tackle. So you're talking maybe 5 to 10 pounds. But you guys are going to find out when I find out how fast this Unlimited MAX is going to go, set up for the way I go fishing with the Torqeedo 1103. So if you guys haven't watched any videos of mine yet or anybody else's on the Unlimited MAX, the new Unlimited MAX has performance scuppers. There's 16 of these in this actual boat. So they're a one-way valve. You keep them closed all the time. It's basically having scupper plugs in. So we know when the scupper plugs in, normally you are more buoyant and you are also usually faster on the water. But if I do get any water in here, which would be very rare, it'd have to be a really large wave, especially with this new design with the brake in the front. All I gotta do is unscrew this, like a quarter turn or maybe even like a half a turn, and I could open these valves up and it'll let the water out. But I don't think we're going to need it because we also have the hole here or another scupper area where you'd actually have the Retrax transducer mount from them if you actually go that route. So you do have a one scupper plug, I guess you could say. It's always open, so water will go out of there too if you need it. But when you're running, no water runs in that or comes up inside that. But let's get this out in the water and let's roll. So we have a little bit of a breeze today. It's like 10 to 15, about 12 sustained right now, but we're going to kind of hang back in some coves right now. But we may take this out, see how the chop is in the main larger part of the lake, and I can hopefully maybe show you if it's rough enough how this handles as well in some rougher water. But I don't think it's gonna be that bad. But my goal on this video is to show you the cruising speed. So if you guys have been watching some of my previous videos or some of my fishing videos, I randomly talk about the speed of the Unlimited. My Unlimited with the Torqeedo cruising speed at half, a little bit more than half of the throttle on the Torqeedo, which is I run about 600 watts, and I normally get about 4.9 to 5.1 depending on the conditions, and full speed on the Unlimited I was only getting 5.8. That is it with the Torqeedo. That's not slow, but from the cruising speed to your max speed, because of how the motor's trimmed and everything else, it wasn't that much more, or max throttle wasn't that much more as far as speed. So I usually would cruise around, you know, that 600 watts on the Torqeedo, and I would be going about 5 miles per hour. That's great, you know. And then when I get to my fishing spot, I would just, you know, kind of keep it really, really low on the throttle and just fish along and do my thing. So I'm expecting this particular model, the Unlimited MAX from Nucanoe, to get faster speeds at cruising and also max. So right now, you know, I got the throttle really, really low. I think it's like, well, it looks like 13 watts, and I'm going 1.5, and there was a gator. So it should be a lot faster, especially with these scupper plugs and everything else. I'm hoping this will supersede and blow out the Unlimited for the speed with the Torqeedo. So I want to start out with cruising speed. So we're gonna set this thing to about 600 watts, which is a little bit more than half throttle, because your Torqeedo, like max watts, is 1150. You can see the wave break though on this, how much more the waves do break. You know, I'm kind of going into a little bit of a chop here, and the whole front of this vessel is staying dry. If this is Unlimited, I'd be getting water over the side. But a little bit of chop out here because it's windy, like I said. So I'm able to show you some of that wave break. So we can kind of go over here where it's a little less windy, get a straight run, and I'll show you what the speed is on this. And based on what I see so far, I might be a little disappointed. We're at 593, I'm not sure if you can see that, 587 watts. It's almost right at, you know, 600 watts. I'm getting 5.1. I was getting a little bit of 5.3 there, 5.2 at half wattage. Don't pay attention to the depth because I have the transducer out of the water right now, just because I don't want to show that, you know, have that little bit of drag. But 5.3, 5.4 at almost 600 watts. So it's a little faster cruising speed, better than like 4.9 to 5.1 I'm getting on the Unlimited. So if you really want to conserve your battery on the Torqeedo, you get 4 miles per hour, which is a pretty good speed. It's only taken me 214 watts to achieve that. I know you probably can't see that with the glare. Let's see what we can do there, but it's only taking about 214 watts, which is pretty good. And I'm cruising at 4 miles per hour. So I could really go a long distance on this. It's saying I can go about 14 miles at this speed, at that draw, with just one battery of the Torqeedo. So 4 miles per hour, going 14 miles total on one battery from Torqeedo, I think is pretty impressive with a boat this size. The ride quality, the way this feels overall, just be able to, you know, keep this boat in a lower gear so that the motor doesn't kick when I take my foot off the pedal, and be able to stand up super easy, shake this thing back and forth. I mean, this thing is so much more stable than the Unlimited. You know, the Unlimited's stable, but being this is sitting up higher and out of the water and carrying this 41 inches out, it really makes a difference of having that 41 inches carrying out farther than tapering off as quick as it did on the Unlimited. Being this is a speed test, I also want to show you how easy this is to stand up, turn sideways, you know, in either direction, and be able to do whatever you want and sit right back down. So that's really great too as well, guys. All right, guys, so let's get this thing full throttle. Let it get up to speed and see what we get here. See, we're at 6.1. 6. All right, we're gonna run this one more time in the open water here. So it's not extremely faster than the Unlimited, but like I was saying before with my Unlimited, I mean, I would have to really like stay on it for a while to get to that 5.8. This kayak hits 6 to 6.1 really fast. It doesn't take as long to get to that speed as well either. Right now, the rating on this kayak is 3 horsepower, and they initially put it out at 5 horsepower, like when they had like the first initial launch of it and kind of showing the public, they had a 5 horsepower rating. They had to go through the process with the Coast Guard to get that higher rating. Now we know there's some 6 horsepower rated boats out there. I think it was the Skiff from Crescent, but they designed that boat around that actual horsepower rating, so they did that right from the beginning. Now during testing, when the team went down to Lake Lanier, they threw a 6 horsepower outboard on this and got speeds of 15 miles per hour. Now we can't do that safely now because it's not rated for that, but once this kayak, hopefully they get the approval and go through the process, once this is legally or officially rated for 5 horsepower, you are going to be able to hit those speeds around 10 miles per hour plus. And that would be great, you know, maybe even like 12. A lot of those people who've been asking, you know, I go offshore all the time, I want as much horsepower as I can to get there faster. Hopefully that's going to come to light here with the Unlimited Max. And you're going to have a lot more of a boat, a lot more stable of a boat, and be able to get out to those offshore rigs and everything else and be able to run those outboards and then throw your trolling motor on the front. Now, the power pole move, during initial testing with the power pole move, it was getting 6.8 max speed. You might be able to get 7 on that. So we know in the kayak world, 1 mile per hour is a big difference. Now, obviously with your motor guides and all that stuff, you're probably still gonna be getting like that 4.5. They're still gonna be slow. The power pole move is extremely expensive. It's like $5,100. And then you also wanna run it at 36 volts. So 36 volt, 50 amp hour battery is still a pretty hefty chunk of change, especially if you go with a Dakota Lithium, which is like $1,700. But there's a lot of other brands out there that are a lot cheaper. Now the stern pod back there will hold 2 36 volt 50 amp hour batteries, so you have the room to be able to carry 2. Now I know some people are running the power pole move and they go about 15 miles with just one battery and they only take like 20% of the battery. How true that is, I don't know, because I don't personally own one and never tested it, but somebody's told me they're running the move and they're, you know, not on this particular kayak, but on the bigger kayak, I think the XTR, and they're only drawing like 20% of the battery after doing 15 miles for the day. You know, with that power pole move, having the ability to cover a ton of water on one battery, and if you get 2 batteries, which will fit in that stern pod, you can cover what? Well over 100 miles with 2 batteries, if not farther. And we know we're not going to be able to do that in one day in a kayak because we're going to be fishing, so we're not going to just be driving around. So where I'm getting at with this is, if you can afford it, and when I can afford it, I probably want to get a power pole move myself. I've never been a big fan of bow mounted motors, but to be able to get that 1 mile per hour faster, or even that almost 1 mile per hour faster, and be able to cover more water with just 1 battery running at 36 volts, that's a big seller for me. But it is also a hefty chunk of change. You're looking, at least with 1 battery, you know, of a decent brand, and the power pole move itself and the brackets and everything else, you have to adapt to the bracket that's on the Unlimited. That Unlimited bracket up there, the Unlimited Max bracket, will fit a lot of standard motors, but the power pole move, you do have to add an additional bracket to that. You're looking about, you know, with everything all said and done, you're looking at least $6,000. So that's a lot of money for a motor setup for your kayak. But if this is what you do, folks, pretty sure that was a gator splashing by me again, or a big fish. You know, if you are in this hobby as much as I am, or you're a tournament angler, that power pole move with a 36-inch shaft is the way to go on, I think, any kayak these days. So we're at about 6.2 with the Torqeedo 1103, and I know the NK300 puts out a little bit more watts, so the NK300 should get this up to maybe 6.4, 6.5. So if you have the NK300, you should be able to do about 6.5 miles per hour with the stern mounted motor. So obviously, you know, I did this test with everything on it because I think when you just take a kayak and throw a motor on it and jump out, you're going to get a little bit more speeds, but that's not real true accurate test. You want to be able to do a test on the water with all your gear on it, because that's what everybody else is going to be doing. You're not just going out with a kayak with a motor and just going for a ride. That rarely ever happens. So I like to do my speed test with everything that I'll be normally going out with when I go fishing. This way you guys know as well. Is the power pole move worth the investment for any kayak? I think so. It's just a hefty price tag, but man, the range and the speed you get with that motor is unbelievable, but you're paying for it. So, you know, overall, I think that the Unlimited Max is worth the upgrade over any of the other Unlimited or Nucanoe lines for bigger, larger water. The Unlimited itself is still a great kayak. I'm going to keep mine. I'm still going to use mine. But the stability, the speed, the dry of a ride that you get out of the Max is definitely freaking awesome. So if you guys are just getting into Nucanoe, go for the Max if you guys can afford it. And if you can really afford it, get the power pole move to go with it. And I think you guys would be extremely, extremely happy for a very, very long time. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll get back with you guys like I always do. And as always, be safe on the water. I'll catch you in the water, or see you from Race Acres.